Alright, you guys, let's talk history for a sec. You know, it's kind of funny how some people are heroes to some and villains to others, or depending on who's telling the story. There is these folks all over the world fighting tooth and nail for what they believe is right. Freedom, justice, you name it. Some call them heroes, and others, not so much. Calling them terrorists instead. That is why we're kicking off this series called Revolutionaries, Liberators, or Terrorists, and we're gonna dive deep into those controversial characters' history, and we're gonna look at both sides of the story and figure out whose narrative do we serve by sticking either label on them. And who better to start with than the man, the myth, the legend, Ernesto Che Guevara. The guy is practically a poster boy for rebellion all over the world, and boy oh boy does he stir up some heated debates. Born in 1928, Che Guevara was more than just a young doctor. He decided to ditch his comfy life and trek across South America and its most rural lands. This wasn't just any touristic trip, it was actually an eye-opener to the harsh realities of poverty and oppression. Che saw the suffering firsthand and realized that band-aids and medicine weren't gonna cut it to fix all those deep-rooted problems. And this trip actually turned him into a terrorist! Or at least that's what some would say. You see, once upon a time, Latin America big shots, you know, the government type, were running a pretty tight ship. And not in a good way. Think brutal oligarchies. Sure, the colonial days were technically done and dusted, but who got all the cash? Wow, what do you mean who? The elite, of course! Meanwhile, American companies were grabbing land left and right, land that, shocker, was indigenous people's land. And what do? They use this land for their own profit, exporting stuff left and right, while a lot of it is just sitting there, unused. Even as local people are going hungry. Then there was this guy, President Arbenz, who actually got elected, surprise surprise, democratically. He tried to shake things up a bit. He wanted to give some of this idle land back to the people and even planned to pay the big landowners for it. But nope, the CIA wasn't having any of it. They tossed him out in a coup, all to keep those corporate profits safe. And Che was watching all of this, seeing how any leader who tried to challenge those corporate profits got labeled as a communist threat and got the boot. And this was just one of the ongoing issues at the time. Che's heart was set on fighting for those struggling at the bottom, and he ended up in Mexico, where he kind of bumped into Fidel Castro and got roped into the Cuban Revolution, as one does. Talk about being in the right time at the right place, eh? Che was a game changer in toppling Batista's regime in Cuba. He didn't just stop there. He was all about shaking things up with major social reforms. We're talking land distribution, making sure folks could read and write, and getting healthcare to the poor. For many, Che was a beacon of hope, fighting against imperialism and pushing for social justice. Now, fast forward to Che's big moment in Cuban literacy campaign of 1961. He knew that knowledge is power, right? So he gets this massive team of over 100,000 volunteers to teach reading and writing in the countryside, and even sharing a bit of poetry. Talk about a renaissance man, eh? And boom, in just 1 year, Cuba's literacy rate shoots up to nearly 96%, which, by the way, it's still one of the highest in the world. However, Che's legacy is not without controversy. As commander of the Cubana fortress prison, he oversaw the execution of numerous individuals. Critics argue that these trials lacked proper judicial process. Sure, the guys who got the axe were the ones causing trouble under Batista, but let's be real, there is probably a less off-with-their-heads way to deal with them. Also, let's not forget about the whole shebang with those forced labor camps, surprise arrests, and giving the cold shoulder to the LGBTQ community, all of which hang around way longer than the fiesta vibes of the revolution. And to top it all off, his radical stance during the Cuban Missile Crisis, advocating for the use of nuclear weapons, painted him further as an extremist. His involvement in revolutionary movements in Congo and Bolivia, often marked by a strict authoritarian approach, further fueled his controversial image. So let's be real here. Che Guevara wasn't just making waves in his backyard. He was more like a one-man band playing a tune that was making big players like the United States tapping their feet nervously during the Cold War. Now picture this. The US, right in the middle of the Cold War chills, sees Che and goes, This guy is a walking, talking challenge to our whole anti-communist playlist. Che is all about spreading that Cuban revolutionary vibe, which was kind of like playing rock and roll at classical music concert for the US. Che's full support for revolutions worldwide got him on the US most wanted list faster than, I don't know, hot new Harry Styles single climbing up the charts. Fast forward to Bolivia, where Che is trying to drop his latest revolutionary album. But plot twist, the US, through the CIA, plays the role of a big-time producer, backing the local talent to bring Che's tour to a half. It's 1967 and sadly, this is where Che's final track plays out. The US saw this as a must-do to keep their geopolitical show on the road. Che's Curtain Call puts the spotlight on how the big Cold War game was played. It's a tale of beliefs, big power players, and how the world stage can turn folks into heroes or villains, depending on who's writing the script. As we reach the end of our journey through the life of Che Guevara, it's clear that the world of revolutionary ideas isn't just black and white. The story of Che teaches us the importance of looking beyond the surface of simplistic narratives. It reminds us that the pursuit of political ideologies often walks a razor-thin line between idealism and reality. Che's life story is a testament that even the most extraordinary individuals among us, at the end of the day, are profoundly human. His journey, filled with passion, conviction, and actions both celebrated and condemned, reflects the multifaceted nature of humanity. It shows us how different perspectives and personal experiences in the unique context of place and time can shape what one perceives as justice for all. As we continue to explore the life of different revolutionaries, let us remember that history is not a clear-cut narrative, but rather it's a mixed thread of human experiences, ambitions, and imperfections. Thank you so much for joining me in this exploration. This is all fueled by my passion for politics and history and controversial topics and conspiracy, and I always like to play the devil's advocate and try to find out what is another side of the mainstream story. So if you guys want to join me in the comments section down below, you can share your thoughts and opinions and I'll respond to each one of you. See you in the debate. Bye!
I'm a villain and a hero, and I'm a villain and a hero. Watch me fly.
For many, Che was a bacon? Che was a bacon! Huh.